Welcome, Chris.
The purpose of what we're doing really is to develop a series of podcasts that we're going to be talking about all sorts of topics and keep it as light-hearted and as informative to clients as possible. And the subject of this podcast is, what is TEXO? Right? Okay. And what I'd like you to do is explain to the audience why or how TEXO came about. Was it that funny?
Yeah.
So okay. How did TEXO come about?
So, where do I start?
At the beginning.
At the beginning. So we start at the beginning. So we obviously sold trad scaffolding back in 2013. My part of that deal was to be tied in for 5 years, and my dad sort of left and went off to hopefully enjoy his retirement and spend his money. It wasn't that long afterwards that he sort of that he left that I was approached by one of my friends and my cousin talking about drones. At the time, I couldn't sort of get involved. I was too heavily involved in my 5 years, so I kind of just pushed them to one side.
So you were still working at trad?
Still working at trad.
In your exit
yeah, still in my exit. And they rung me a few times, my prison sentence. And they rung me a few times afterwards, and I still sort of said to them, I couldn't be involved at the moment. I need to sort of concentrate on this sort of 5 year exit. And I think about sort of 6 months, maybe a year went by, and then my dad rung me and sort of said to me, and I spoke to sort of to John and Rob about this drones.
Know your cousins.
And obviously one of my friends, and he was more interested than I was. So he sort of took himself down there, met them, and then come back and fell in love with it. And at the time it was called TEXO Drone. My dad started to sort of invest into them. And that was it really. He was investing a lot of money. My sort of friend Rob, he had his own sort of business. So he got to the point where he couldn't really invest any more into the sort of the drone side of it. Obviously a lot of investment into that sort of technology side. And he sort of bowed out, but still remained as a shareholder in sort of TEXO Drone. That left my sort of dad and my cousin to sort of build this business from sort of scratch. And that's what they did. I had no involvement. I listened to the sort of stories of the sort of money being involved into, being put into the business, and didn't really know much about it. And then it started to sort of grow arms and legs. And then they were talking about sort of coming up to Aberdeen to replicate what they've got, but sort of looking at going after the sort of offshore market. That was really what started. And then this was going on for a sort of a good 2, maybe 3 years. And then I left trad in October 2018. And it was just around about the same time that sort of TEXO Group was formed in sort of Aberdeen. Dad sort of asked me to come up, have a look at it, see what I thought. And so I did. I come up for a couple of days, and I didn't really know what to say. It was a lot of investment, a lot of people. 8 businesses at the time, all sort of open on day one, all the staff in place, big office, and trying to sort of take over the world to a certain degree. And that was it. That was really my sort of 2 days here. I sort of got on a plane afterwards and washed my hands of it. I kind of couldn't believe that someone had invested that much money into people that we didn't really know, 500 miles away from home. That to me was a little bit of a...
So it was quite very much out of your sort of comfort zone.
It was well out of my comfort zone. It's obviously for me, as coming from a sort of a scaffolding background, that's all I sort of knew. To sort of venture into a completely different market in a different environment, as much as I'm sort of talking about Scotland, but compared to England to Scotland, it's kind of a different culture. And obviously for us being English, to sort of walk into sort of Scotland and try and build a business, you can say that. Anyway, so that was really it. I had a 4-year lockout from when I left trad. My goal really was to start again in the 4 years. But in the meantime, I knew I couldn't go near that. I kind of got a property business that I've had for many years on the side. And I thought I'd just spend a bit of time sort of doing that side of it, building that up. And until the time comes, I could get back into scaffolding. That was the plan. After a bit of time, I could see my dad was getting very nervous. A lot of money being invested. He didn't want a day job. So he was putting a lot of money and a lot of sort of faith and trust in people, in sort of not only in Aberdeen but obviously in Blythe, in Newcastle, plus in Witham and Essex, and I could see he was getting very nervous. So I said to him I would go and spend some time at the drones. I just assumed I'd never really understood drones. I've never really been involved in that technology side, but I just thought, coming from a construction background, having similarities there, but not only that, good customer base. A good customer base that I could openly speak to, because it wasn't to do with scaffolding, it was to do with a different product, different service. And I thought maybe that could open the doors for the drones to be in construction.
So this was TEXO DSI?
This was, originally TEXO Drone.
Right.
So that was what I did. I went there, I spent a couple of weeks there just to sort of get an understanding of the business, just see what they do, how it works, what markets they work in, and just get a bit of a kind of a crash course in the drone technology. That was that.
Not a crash.
Not literally. Hopefully not a crash course, but you know what I mean. And that was that. But in that time of spending some time there, you started to realise that there wasn't really a business. It was kind of a lot of smoke and mirrors.
I remember you saying it was very sort of, nothing was very obvious.
No, there was a lot of stuff going on.
Very technical.
But a lot of stuff going on that wasn't paying the bills. I think it was trying to do. I could understand what they was trying to do. They was obviously trying to sort of get market exposure. And in doing so, they would carry out a lot of projects for free, just so people could see what we can do with the technology side of it. But that doesn't pay the bills, and that doesn't stop the sort of investment being put into the company itself. So I went and spoke to my dad, and I just sort of said to him, I'll tell you what I'll do. I will step in and take care of the drone side of it, just to take a bit of a headache off of him. That was it. Obviously, I took over. The MD was in place. He went through the sort of company, looking at it, trying to change, trying to put my stamp on the company. You've got your own sort of business model, and I think that business model works in any business, provided you can get the right people around you that understands the sort of way you work and what you're trying to create. I think it will work anywhere. And yeah, did it work? Yeah, for me, not for them. There was obviously people come on, and then we started to build this business. But the first thing I recognised was it was the stigma we was getting from being called TEXO Drone. It was around about the same time that, don't know if you remember, but Gatwick and Heathrow got closed because of the drones.
Drone flying near.
And I remember speaking to my customer base from the construction, and as soon as you mention drone, all they think is you take pretty pictures, and that's far from what we did sort of at TEXO Drone at the time. So obviously looking at group, obviously TEXO Drone was not part of group, even though it had the same owner. It was a different entity, and that was all down to sort of Rob being that 20% shareholder. So I wanted to kind of align it more with TEXO Group, just so people started to sort of understand that we're not part of group, but we are, if you get what I mean. From the outside world, people would see it's the same sort of branding. And that's when I spoke to you, Russ, and you sort of come down. We really looked at the whole marketing, looked at the website, stripped it all back to the basics, changed its name to TEXO DSI. Even though that's still drone survey inspection, but it kind of just moves away from that drone, and built that back up. In the process of me doing that, I realised that there was there was a guy actually working in Aberdeen for TEXO Drone. So I started to slowly come up to Aberdeen into group to spend time with the guy at the time, just to get an understanding of why there's no work. And it was quite obvious sort of speaking to him that I think the actual TEXO group culture, some of the people in there had upset quite a lot of companies around the sort of the area. And that was why the door was quite quite firmly closed. So me and him embarked on trying to reopen these doors, come across with a new sort of TEXO DSI, give people an understanding of what we can do, and slowly started to build in momentum back in the oil and gas market.
But very much so is still TEXO Drone / DSI.
They're still standalone, still nothing to do with sort
the
of
other
group.
services carried on.
The other services still carried on underneath TEXO Group. But the more time I spent here at Aberdeen in TEXO Group, you could quite quickly see that the culture that I took over from TEXO Drone was the same culture that was sitting in sort of in group itself.
But explain what that culture was.
It was...
And how... what that culture was, but then how you changed it.
Well, the culture was kind of very... so as I said, you had 8 businesses at the time, and literally 8 separate businesses. They were... each had their own MD, each had their own P&L and budget, which I completely understand that. But each MD had a share in his own part of the business. So literally had 8 independent companies working underneath TEXO. But what that then bred that culture of all people cared about was their own part of the business.
Their own little silo.
Their own little silo, because that was all they was being benchmarked on. For them to sort of build that business into a profitable business would inflate their shareholding in that. And obviously the dream for the whole TEXO group was a kind of a 5-year exit plan. It was to build it as big as possible, £100 million turnover, sell it, walk away from the sunshine. That was the goal. But when you come here and you could see only the first year of trading, yeah, there was a lot of holes that needed to be filled. Accounts weren't there because obviously, it's self-building accounts with eight companies, and it all takes time to sort of get off the ground. But the more time I spent up in group, the more I could slowly see. I don't know how to explain what I see, but you could just see it wasn't right. It wasn't right. It was the same as what I had at TEXO Drone on a bigger scale. That kind of that exuberance, that sort of money's no object. That sort of let's make a big song and dance and be known, but known for what? Yeah. What was we known for? Was we known just for the name TEXO? Was it the X? What did I didn't know that much, but I then started to my dad started to get nervous again, very nervous about the sort of money he was investing in sort of TEXO Group, and I started to become more part of the day-to-day of being involved in the accounts. Obviously, it was a lot easier for my dad to, instead of flying up to Aberdeen, to bring people down to sort of Whittam, where I was based, have the meetings there, board meetings, go through the accounts and see what the company was doing. And because I was there, he wanted me to come into these board meetings. My main gripe, I suppose, for me was we had the same owner. We had the same people that started sort of TEXO Drone, currently sitting in TEXO Group. But TEXO Group was not giving TEXO Drone any work. And I find that bizarre that you've got something that can really open doors for all these different parts of the business, but no one wanted to talk to you. No one would listen to you. No one knew what you'd done. And as much as you can go up there and you could tell them exactly what we do and presentations, and it never got that buy-in. And I think when I sat in some of these board meetings, you could clearly see that it was all very massaged. A lot of the accounts, a lot of the budgets were kind of accounts or budgets that you put in front of an investor to keep them happy. Were they actually going to be the accounts at the end of the year? I didn't think so. And as time sort of went on, as I said, my dad was getting really nervous and he wanted to walk away. That was obviously difficult for me because he put a lot of money, a lot of family trust money. The money that he got from his part of the deal at Trad was getting dwindled into a company that he had no control on. And for me, that couldn't happen. I suppose for me, I couldn't have him having such a successful business for his life, to get it into that position where he sold it for what he sold it for. I couldn't see him walk away with a failed business under his belt. That was never going to happen. So, and on top of that as well, selfish side of me, I think where I got myself so involved in the drone side of it, TEXO DSI, I kept thinking to myself, as much as TEXO DSI is a separate entity, if TEXO Group was to go into bankruptcy or just in so whatever he wanted to do with it, that would have a knock-on effect to TEXO DSI, because as much as I said to you, they're separate entities in the marketplace. People start to sort of realise that they are together in some shape or form. So if the big part of the business goes, everyone's going to be thinking, "Oh, they're next." So I think the selfish side of me took over, and from that I said, "Look, you can't close it. You can't close Group." He was obviously worried because we had an MD in place at the time in Group, an Aberdonian. A lot of the people around him, Aberdonians, was worried that whether if we got rid of the MD, would that have a knock-on effect and all the team would go? I wasn't worried. I just thought we had nothing to lose, really. If you're going to sort of look at closing a company, what difference does it make? What difference does it make if we try something? If we go up there and do what we need to do, I'd step in. If everyone goes, well, what have we lost? We can either try and rebuild it with new people, or we just shut the doors. It's entirely up to you. So he kind of got on board with me, and we've done that. We come up here on sort of December 2019, just before Christmas, and put the first part of the plan in place. The MD went, a few people went. I spent a bit of time working with, looking at the business, trying to work out what parts of the business out of the 8s that I felt could be worked with, could be profitable, could move forward with. And that was really my plan. Obviously Christmas come back up into January, spent some time with the guys. My main important focus for me was losing this silo mentality. Couldn't understand how you could literally, as we all know, how difficult it is to get a customer. Not only have you got that worry of trying to get a customer and hold on to that customer, on top of that, you've got someone that's actually sitting next to you in a room that can give you work as well. And that, I just couldn't understand that, why they wouldn't talk. So you'd have engineering going out to 3-4 different fabricators. And if TEXO Fabrication was 5% dearer than another, that order would go directly to the cheapest one. There'd be no conversation with TEXO Fabrication to say, can you shave any money off your price? It was nothing. And that was it. And that was how the company worked. It was just a terrible culture, terrible mindset of the way sort of businesses should be. And that had to change. And so going back to that, 8 companies become 4. Engineering stayed, fabrication stayed, workspace solutions stayed, and asset integrity stayed. Plus TEXO DSI, but as I said, that was separate. So that was the sort of 5 that I had to work with. Slowly started to work through the business, trying to strip it all apart to understand the purpose of the company, understand where it's going, and trying to change the culture. So stripping it back to basics, putting the foundations in to kind of get you in that position where we now know where we need to be and what we need to do. And that was what we done. And as I slowly started to work on that plan, COVID hit 3 months in. Then that was difficult because for me, it's all about kind of building a team, getting that team around you. Once people understand how you want the business to run, your culture, your mindset, if people can get on board with that, it kind of really does pull everyone together. So trying to do that through COVID, when I couldn't get on a plane, I couldn't come to Aberdeen, I had to try and do that on Teams. That's difficult. That's really difficult to kind of bring that culture into place. So any opportunity I had to get here, I would. But it was becoming more and more difficult. You had sort of England would open slightly, Scotland would sort of go into complete lockdown. So you were constantly fighting between the locations of trying to work out how to sort of put them all together. As I said, during this sort of process, a lot of people went. And I think COVID helped me with that as well. I think when I sat with Sam, our HR director, I always remember I was here on the day of the lockdown. And I remember saying to them all when I left here, I drove back because I don't think I could have got a flight. I can't remember what happened, but I drove back to England. And I remember walking out, and I remember saying to people, I'll see you in a couple of weeks' time. And it wasn't meant to be. And I remember the sort of week after, I think Sam rang me and said, I've worked on a plan for COVID. And I was like, what are you talking about? She said, well, I've had to work on a plan, because if it goes on too long, we need to start looking at parts of the business and what we can do, and furloughs, and looking at salaries, and what can we do to get through the pandemic. And I was like, you're mad. We'll be back to work soon. Don't panic. And it wasn't to be. So obviously, as this plan started to bite, as it got to the nitty gritty of, yes, I had to ask for people to take sort of salary sacrifices and cutting car allowances, because people couldn't go and see a customer. They were confined to their house. So why would I pay them a car allowance? That quickly showed the men from the boys. That was showing who was with you, who wasn't with you. So I'm thankful in a way of COVID. Obviously not for how long it went on for and the kind of damage it caused the actual business, but for me to kind of get an understanding of these people and who was by your side, it was kind of priceless. That was that. So this was the sort of first year working our way through that, not only with transforming the company, bringing new people in, people going, trying to get through that sort of pandemic, and then slowly coming to the other side of it and understanding where the business was, and then putting your stamp onto it, of looking at what TEXO needed to kind of grow back into that the size it was, but having the right services and the right mentality working alongside you. The days of being able to go out to purchase other companies and bring them into TEXO had gone. That money had sort of gone. There was a pot of money left, but that pot of money is to keep TEXO going and to organically grow it. And then what we've done during that whole year of pandemic, come the 1st of December 2020, we formed a recruitment business, which is external. We formed Port Services, which was in Port of Blythe. And so coming out of that first year of all that going on, we was back up to 7 parts of the business, but organically grown. Just finding people in the right place at the right time that understood the culture, understood where you want to take a business, giving them that springboard, giving them that blank canvas to a certain degree. There's nothing here. If you want a recruitment business, build it, because there's nothing here for you. You kind of build something from scratch. Same as Port Services. Fantastic facility sitting in the Port of Blythe. TEXO had a terrible name there. Bringing someone like Alan in, kind of being well respected, well known in Blythe, trying to build that sort of that relationship, showing people that this is a different TEXO, this is a new TEXO. That's where we come out of it. But going back slightly in all this, I always remember when I did take over, I was kind of a bit of a hot topic in Aberdeen. Kind of this guy from sort of London coming up here, ripping a place apart. All these people going. They all kind of wanted to meet me, and they all wanted to just understand what was going on. Who was this crazy man that come into sort of Aberdeen and done what he'd done? And it was difficult. It was difficult meeting these people, because a lot of the people I met, they had experiences with TEXO in the past. And you had to sit there listening to some of these horror stories of what they'd had from the original TEXO. And the whole time in your head, you're thinking, that's our family money. That people have just literally just didn't care. So frivolous with it, because they just thought it was a never-ending pot of money. And it was sad. It was sad to hear that. But the worst part for me was when you actually turn around to these customers and you say to them, so what do you know about TEXO? They didn't know anything. All they knew in their mind, we had a warehouse in West Hill, and it was full of drones. There's no drones here. All the drones were in Whittam. So they thought there was full of drones here, and they knew we sponsored Pataudry. That's it. Nothing else. So that was really difficult. And again, I suppose moving forward during that pandemic year and changing the culture, transforming the company, was bringing you on board as well to sort of do what we've done with sort of DSI, to kind of rebrand it, rip that website apart, make it kind of understandable for people. This is what we do. These are the 7 services of TEXO, and make it clear, crisp, plus trying to get the people to all work together. That was that. Then the sort of 2021 was kind of all about that now, building on what we've built, building on that foundation and having the right people in place. There's always some changes along the way. As you know yourself, it's going to take a long time before you're 100% happy with your team. It does take time. But as we look forward to coming through 2021, still in pandemic, obviously a little bit easier to sort of move around to a certain degree, trying to get that culture on board. Definitely got the culture right. Definitely got that people all working together. But the plan of moving forward in 2021 was to get to the point where we could dissolve all the companies, really become that kind of that one company ethos of just, this is TEXO. Yes, we've got engineering fabrication, but we haven't got them separate entities. We've just got TEXO, and then underneath that is our 7 services, each with their own director in there. Yes, in charge of their own P&L, their own budgets, but letting them understand that it doesn't matter what they do as a service or a part of the business, it impacts on every part of the business. So trying to get their focus in, you could be sailing off into the sunset, you could be having the best year of your life, but another part of the business is not. That's going to have no help to you whatsoever, because unless the whole of TEXO does well, no one does well. So it's getting that understanding across that people need to work with each other constantly, and dissolving these companies for people to then sort of stand back and just see, I'm just part of TEXO now. It's what I do that's going to impact the whole of TEXO, bringing people into these weekly meetings, bringing them into a monthly meeting, having combined monthly meetings where they can see what their part of the business does on a week by week or month by month business, how that impacts the other parts of the group. And that's what we've managed to sort of create, is that kind of together we are one culture.
I was just actually, you beat me to
Sorry,
it. Is that the together we are one is, how do you see that on a daily basis here?
See it, of course you see it. You do see it a lot. It's listen.
Define it. It's one thing for the listeners. It's basically define. It's like the vision. It's like everybody wants to sort of say your vision, values, and your mission, which we'll cover. But the mantra or the strap line for TEXO is "Together we are one."
Yeah.
How does that define itself on a daily basis? If you could pick an example of something that happens.
Well, I think for me, you got to remember, my business model is a bit strange. Yeah, it is, but it's worked. It's worked in the past. You know, it's what's the point of reinventing the wheel? Because this is, I suppose it goes back to it's the management structure. It's flat management. Like, there's no hierarchy. It's literally just me. Like the guys. It took the guys a long time to understand that they just talk to me 24/7. Any problems, they will get an answer there and then.
But it was interesting. You sort of when you say, "Oh, it's an odd manager." It's
odd for companies. No, I don't know. It's wrong. I mean, listen. I suppose a lot of people always look at me and think you're crazy. How can you have so many people reporting into you? That there's no kind of there's no middleman. It's just literally me. So you deal with. Not only you deal with now 8 companies, we can come onto live stream in a minute, but we're now 8 companies, sorry, I'll phrase that, 8 services, 8 directors.
So it's interesting that sometimes even we that have defined what these things are, you do sometimes sort of fall back into companies, and it's not, it's a whole. It's a whole.
It's just one team. That is all.
So define that moment.
Well, no. So what I'm getting at is obviously it's under people understand that culture and just direct response to one person. It makes it. A lot of people don't like it because they are 100% accountable for their part of the business. That it's them. The buck stops with them. If they need an answer or if there's a part of that business failing, they're the ones that have got to deal with that. and they report directly to me, and I speak to them directly. And I think that unsettles people. They haven't got anywhere to hide. You know yourself, in some certain businesses, they've got different directing lines, and there might be someone who is a number 2 underneath this person, and then they've got a manager, and then they've got this.
But don't you think that makes for a more direct, honest, transparent company?
That's the whole point of it. It was really surprising for the guys to sort of, from the moment I took over, there was nothing to hide. Everyone could see everything. You know what I mean? We opened their eyes to every part of the business. Looking at group costs, you know, I remember when I sort of took over, I think sort of looking at engineering alone, biggest part of the business, their group costs were astronomical per month, with no narrative behind that. They would just charge that per month. They could ask the question, they wouldn't get an answer. So they wouldn't know what it's made up of. I know what it's made up of, but they wouldn't know. And I think it was kind of really getting people to understand that the group structure is purely just a support. We are the backroom staff, and that's including me. Them guys downstairs, not just only downstairs in Blythe and in Witham and Dundee, they are the breadwinners. They're the ones that earn the money. They're the ones that keep the wheels turning in TEXO. And we have to assist them to make sure whatever they need, they get. So major part of that was stripping the whole group back, really looking at the group in general. What do we need as a group? What do we need as a support function? Bringing that down in headcount, making it as minimal as possible. But making sure you've got enough people in place for when we start to grow again. Because what you want to do, you want to get the guys to understand what their group costs are per month. Yeah, there's fluctuations, of course there is. There could be an influx in, say, marketing, or we might want to look at an event. But they all know about this kind of stuff. It's no surprises. If there's an event we want to attend, of course it's going to have an impact on their group costs. But they know long before we book it. They all buy into it, they all want to do it, and we talk about it, and then that's why their group costs might sort of flick up and down. But they all know now what that part of their group costs them. They all know what that gives them, and they can never sit there and say, I'm not happy with that group charge, because every part of it is what's needed. And as I always say to the guys, yes, you might think the group costs seem high at the moment, but the group costs won't get any higher. It's there. The busier you guys get, the more profit you start to make, your group costs will just never get any bigger. You can grow as a business, but they will always stay the same. So it's kind of changing it around on its head, and I think we've managed to sort of get that. But going back to your sort of your sort of question,
I see that together we are one having multiple facets, so that together they know everything that's going on. Together they share work through the different services. So there's many different facets to that.
It is, and
it's not just one.
No. There's a lot around it. But what I was more going back to, it was coming into a business that was 100% relying on oil and gas. I think for me, as going back to my business model, as I sort of spoke to you about, we was a scaffolding business. Done one product, put a scaffold up, took the scaffold down. But what we were very good at, very diverse in that scaffolding market. So we would work in sort of 6-7 market sectors of scaffolding, be it new build, be it demolition, be it refurbishment, be it undergrounds, anything we could do just to kind of make ourselves a little bit more recession proof when it comes to houses not being built. Okay, no problem, no more new builds. Let's concentrate more on our sort of refurbishment side. It gives us that moment to be able to move and make us really recession proof during recessions. And as well, we had a kind of a bit of a mantra that we'd never done any more than 10% for one customer, because then you don't get too reliant on that customer. That customer could go under overnight. You've got 50% of your business relying on that customer. That's 50% of your business gone the next day. So it was really trying to understand 10% with each customer, working in multiple sort of different markets. And that's what I wanted to sort of bring on board with TEXO. I'd done that slowly but surely with DSI, but that had to move across the group. And that was so difficult. That was one of the hardest things, because walking in here, 100% relying on oil and gas. And if you look at engineering, as I sort of said, big part of TEXO, pretty much 90% reliant on one customer. Now that to me worries me. If God forbid that customer went under overnight, the whole engineering business is gone. 40% of the business in TEXO is gone. It's crazy. So that had to change. And that was difficult. That was really difficult. Coming to an oil and gas company and to tell people about the outside world of there's more to life than oil and gas. Yes, it's fantastic when it's going well, but when it's going bad, it's the worst place to be in. And slowly getting them into that culture of there's construction out there, there's renewables out there, there's utilities, there's marine, there's other world out there outside. Yeah. And it was difficult. And I suppose trying to introduce that, trying to get them to focus on different customers, building customer bases, moving into different market sectors, having this flat management structure, it was a lot for the guys to take on board overnight. But when it all come together was when we won Saipem, because that was for me the proudest moment. That was showing people that we can do this. We can move away from oil and gas into a renewables project. Biggest order ever won by TEXO. But on top of that, 5 parts of the business working in it on one project, being carried out in 2 locations. That to me was the highlight of everyone then having to stand back and think, maybe he's not that mad. maybe he does know what he's talking about.
And then the strapline comes to the forefront.
And then the strapline comes to it. And that's really where the strapline is. It really is all about it. We all go through the good times and bad times together. That's it. As I sort of said to you going back, there is nothing to hide. The only thing that guys never know about in TEXO is how much money's sitting in the bank. Apart from that, they can see absolutely everything that goes on. Their budgets are their budgets. I'm not this kind of person that someone bring a budget into me and I look at it and I'm, no, 50% on top of that, please. That's not going to work because straight away they're on a back foot. They know their markets. They know what they can turn over. Yes, I'm here to support them. Yes, I'm here to give them the tools to build whatever they want to build. And that's the beauty of TEXO. There's never the word no.
That actually brings me very neatly onto, you've given a great sort of summary of the history and how we've got to where we are. But because of all of that, what are the benefits to a client? For a client who will be listening to this, what is TEXO to them? What are the benefits?
I would say it really is, and I hope that's coming across from the customers that are using us, that we are very transparent. The guys had when I sort of took over, trying to put a business into a business to a certain degree, giving the guys KPIs, and I think one of the first KPI I give the guys was obviously repeat business. On top of that, I give them a KPI of trying to make sure your exit price is no more than 10% of your entry price. And what that does, that gives customers confidence that we're not here to kind of yank their chain. We're not here to go in as cheap as possible and then to kind of take them apart for extras, because that has a knock-on effect to that first KPI of repeat business. Because if you can't keep that customer happy, he's not going to come back again. So I know myself, all the guys that work here are the experts in what they do. So they should be able to get a scope of work from a customer, and they should be able to know whether that customer might need 20% more than what he's put on his scope. That's down to us as a company to give them that sort of understanding of, look, this is what you've asked for, but we feel you're going to need X, Y, and Z as a shopping list. It makes you very transparent, and some people don't like that. Some people straight away, and I've had it in my past. I had it in the past of people, you might get someone in commercial will just literally look at the bottom of that line and say, they're expensive.
The world of procurement.
But they don't look at what's in that. And it's happened here before. We've priced a project based on that mantra, that ethos, and we've lost it because people didn't look at it properly. And not only to our price, but they set the same price as that job ended up anyway, because the people they used done what we don't want to be. Give them a price, sting them for extras all the way through it. So I hope that's coming across, that we are kind of very transparent, letting people understand that we not that we know better than them, I wouldn't say that at all, but we should know our product. We should know what we're offering as a part of their package. We should know, in our experience, what they sort of need. Plus, on top of that, you're making it an easy option to be able to be a one-stop shop for a customer to come to you and to give just one PO and deal with one person, and that one person will take care of all different disciplines of that project. And that's really what we're sort of trying to be.
That's where TEXO comes into it.
That's where TEXO comes into it. That's where we can take care of your asset or your building or whatever you need from start to finish. And you shouldn't have to worry about any other subcontractors having to come in and deal with them, because we can take care of that in one foul swoop. On top of that, one good thing about that, kind of going back to that flat management structure, is the fact of makes you very, very rapid. You can respond, agile.
Yeah.
There's no getting tied up waiting for answers. Like we could get a job coming tonight. We can sit around this table for 10 minutes, and if it's a goer, we're done. We're there tomorrow. Don't worry about that. And that's what you need to be. You need to be agile. And I know from experience, and obviously not many companies are like that. A lot of companies are tied up in red tape and bureaucracy, and everything's very slow, and it all takes time. We never want to be that company. We want to get an opportunity or an order come through that door, and we'll start that tomorrow if you need it. Yes, it's always difficult trying to get the labour out of nowhere, but whatever we can do, we will be there tomorrow morning to get that job started. That's what I hope the comfort and I hope the benefits of using TEXO is coming to the forefront.
Because the interesting thing there about it is that the relationship is inherently important in the way TEXO operates.
Yes.
And having that relationship is using the strapline together we are one is as much important for the client as is internal to the staff.
Yes.
The vision.
Yes.
Where do you want to see? We've had this conversation before.
Yeah, but we haven't spoke about live stream yet. We've missed off live stream. We missed off the part. We're now 8 parts of the jigsaw.
Okay, let's hear about the one of the newest editions.
So one of the newest editions started last year. I had a couple of guys come to me with a software, and they wanted to see if we could bring it to market for them. And again, it goes back to that not having the money at disposal to sort of buy a company. So it's kind of finding these people that have got something that would work well within the kind of TEXO setup, and working with them to bring that to market. So obviously I didn't know them, they didn't know me. I never known anything about software as much as TEXO is completely out of my comfort zone. To talk about software, hardware, that just blows my mind. So to have people come on board with a kind of a software, trying to turn that into a marketable solution, working alongside the other parts of sort of TEXO. Obviously, again, with your help coming in, getting the right marketing around it, understanding, and we've done it ourselves. We know we've stopped and started with that product because.
But what is that? Let's define what.
So live stream is it's predominantly a software that can go into a sort of a body worn camera, can on your tablet, on your iPhone. It's got many different areas that it can be deployed in. The guys come to me originally as a kind of a remote worker, which would obviously eliminate the time for people to travel. So it could be you could have a guy offshore, he could be carrying out a routine inspection, and we could be sitting in this boardroom watching that guy live through our tablet, through our computer, and we can explain to him exactly what he needs to do, why he's on that site. And we can do that through voice, through typing, and as well we can take over his computer, his laptop or his phone, and we can show them exactly what they need to do. That was what they come to us with, and that was the beauty for me. That sort of relieving the need for people to travel, and especially going through COVID, you couldn't travel. Bed space was at a premium, so it was very difficult to have all these people go offshore or to anywhere really to sort of be able to sort of carry out these inspections. And as well, it costs a lot of money. It costs a lot of money to send everyone to site, look at something. So that was the appeal. That appeal obviously led to us looking at, do we build a camera? Instead of it just being a software. To me, I always find it must be a very hard sell to go sit in front of someone and say, I've got some software for you. They can't touch it. They can't feel it. They can't look at it. So it was having that kind of product that was a little bit striking, that people can look at, touch, feel, and I like that. And then you draw them in with, well, it's not so much the hardware, it's what's behind the scenes. So we slowly worked with Pat and Colin during the 6 months up until the end of sort of 2021, and then come 2022, they both joined, and now we've got TEXO Livestream. Again, with your help, with some of the trial and error, some of the mistakes we've made along the way of trying to understand where it's best placed in the market. I think we got that. I think we've got it now. And I think you can see that the guys clearly understand where their product's going. They're starting to build some good traction. Not only that, we're using that in anger with parts of the business. We've got TEXO DSI using that all the time now when it comes to the drones. Obviously, if we ever have an issue on site or, God forbid, an accident with a drone, it's all live streamed. We can watch that. We can dial in at any moment, day or night, and see exactly what's gone on site. Watch the guys if you want to. Not that you want to be there as a spy, but you can clearly see if there is any issues, any problems. And even for audit purposes, carrying out audits on site, sitting in your office, it's a kind of no-brainer. So yes, now TEXO are 8 services, and that would be the end of it at the moment. 8's enough. 8's enough. Listen, never say never, but as I said to you, Russ, it comes down to money. It comes down. There's always opportunities. I've had opportunities come along in what's been 2.5 years here of people coming to me, and fantastic opportunities. Fantastic, and you could see it work really well with what we try and offer, but it comes at a cost, and it's a cost I haven't got.
Well, it's about creating a stable platform that you can grow from.
That's it. I mean, as I said to you, the main important ingredient was to kind of stabilise what we've got, stabilise what we had as a business, make sure we had the funding available to grow it, and add what we need around the outside of it or into it. That was just a case of finding the right people just to build it, and that's really what we give people a platform, and that's where we are now.
So the stability's there, the togetherness is there, the atmosphere, because unless you have a stable, happy workforce, TEXO can't and will not be what it could be.
No, of course it won't be. But
It's an interesting aspect when you speak to the heads of companies, is they can give all sorts of explanation, is that TEXO's built on simplicity.
Yes.
Transparency and honesty.
Yeah.
Is the one thing that I see on a daily basis is that coming through its staff. Where do you want to be in 2 years' time?
Where do I want to be in 2 years' time? I want to see how far we can take it. You know, I think we are very different. We are a very different company, as in you'd find it, no disrespect to oil and gas or the oil and gas industry itself, but it is very old school. And I think it's a lot of sort of different red tape surrounding it and that hierarchy. And I think, as I said, we are completely different. We're not reliant on oil and gas. I want to get to the company that's we're no more than 20% in each industry. That's what that's my dream. My dream is to get us 20% in 5 market sectors, and I just want to see how far we can take it. I think we've got something very special. You know, it's different. People know us now. People are getting used to us. But what you will find on that, Russ, is some people don't like it. When I say people, I mean staff.
Do you think
staff?
Change?
Not so much the change. I think it's like trying to attract staff. because you're different. Because you're different to how a lot of the big boys will be up here. Very, very structured.
You find that a lot of staff have been moulded
yes.
into a very certain specific
That's
way
it.
of working.
And obviously the beauty of TEXO is everyone has to get their hands dirty. Everyone has to be involved. You can't have kind of just a director being a director. That doesn't how it works. A director needs to know the ins and outs of his business. I should be able to ask them a question today and I know the answer straight away. And that's what you want to breed, that culture. So where some of these people have come from, they're kind of, I don't want to sound it derogatory, but they're a number. They're a number in amongst a big organisation. And they come in and they do that job and they go home. You come to TEXO, you might do that job, but you might do another job as well. And while you're there, can you do that job as well? Yeah. So you find you're a bit of not a jack of all trades, but you find you're a bit multidisciplined and you can turn your hand to things. And some people don't like that. Some people don't like the fact that I will just be around to wander around, and if someone emails me, they get a reply in 2 minutes. They find that a bit unnerving.
The business model makes people an important part of a much larger cog.
Yes, but people don't realise that. That's the trouble. They don't realise that. They don't realise how much of a voice they have.
But once they've been here a while, they realise
it's keeping them here a while. That's what you'll find. You'll find that people will come from these sort of. We obviously want to grow. We want to be up there with doing it with the big boys. No, we want to be that irritating noise to the big boys. The ones that are kind of just clipping at their heels, just enough just to wind them up slightly.
Offering them something different.
Offering something different, the big boys are out there, we're never going to pretend to be these big boys. Never, ever. That's not how we work. We're never going to be chasing turnover. All we want to be is profitable company. Profitable company, very professional company, and turn profit. That's all we really want to be as a kind of a company. If people come here and they kind of want to be up there with the big boys, you're at the wrong place. We know we're too young at the moment to understand where our plateau is, but we'll get there. We'll know exactly where our turnover should be, and then we work backwards from that. Once we got our turnover, it's all about kind of just bring that turnover down, but just get their profits up. That's where we want to sort of turn it around. But it is difficult to get people to come from them big organisations into here to understand the culture, to understand where we work, to understand where we want to be in time. And not only, we're not just an oil and gas company. So we're now having to look at different areas to attract staff. And that has to be outside of oil and gas. That has to be some of the companies that are construction or are in renewables or utilities, and people with an all-rounder of understanding how different market work. It's bringing these people on that are not just set in that oil and gas way. It's understanding there's different markets out there, different ways of working, different cultures. And that's what we're having to find. And obviously going for the kind of the size of company that we are. That's what we're finding. We're getting the best sort of staff. The attainment of staff is coming from that area, not trying to take people from the big boys to bring them in, because that doesn't necessarily work as we are.
I don't believe they have the TEXO mentality.
Oh, no. Some do. Don't get me wrong. We've got some guys here that have worked for some of the biggest companies, and some girls. But I call girls. They're both. But what I'm saying is, you got some people here that have come from these big organisations and love it here. Love it. Because they've got free reign. They have free reign to kind of get on with their job without having to wait for an answer. And this person's got to sign that off. They'll get an answer. Get an answer now. That's it.
Well, I think that brings us to the end of the first podcast. I hope you've enjoyed it.
Yes.
And for the listeners out there, there's going to be many more of these podcasts going to be produced and aired, and we'll keep you abreast of when that might be. Thank you ever so much.
Thank you.